Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have Ishita Bhama with me. Hey, Ishita.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yes, so excited to get into our conversation. But just so people can know you, I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. Ashita Bhama is a guide for people to access deep healing and develop their intuitive abilities. She is a divinely led speaker, healer, and spiritual teacher who is deeply connected to her psychic medium and energy healer abilities. As an intuitive channel for divine information, she reads auras, past lives, relationships, connects with spirits and guides, and loved ones who have passed, sees your next steps in life, can work with your soul contracts, and help you come back into your power and certainty. She was born a gifted clairvoyant and has loved teaching people tools to connect deeply with their intuition and heal their lives. Ashita continues to help thousands of people through her readings, classes, private coaching, in person events, international retreats, and teachings. She is grateful to be able to be of service to so many and constantly finds that her work with spirit surprises her and her clients in the most beautiful ways. All right. So I would like to hear your story because I don't think I've ever heard of anyone that was born as a clairvoyant. I didn't know you were born as a clairvoyant.
Yes, so I was born in a very auspicious time. So I was born in India, and it's really interesting all the planetary lineups that were happening, the events that were happening during that time. And when I was born, it was a very auspicious day. And later on, as I grew as a 3-year-old, my parents would take me to the temple all the time because I wanted to go and just sit there and meditate and be in this transcendental kind of energy. And I didn't know I was experiencing kind of like this halo energy around people. But it was colored. It wasn't like it was staying constant, or it wasn't solid. And I thought that there was something wrong with my eyes, or just something that I shouldn't have happened. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'm just imagining it. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it because clearly no one else is talking about it. And maybe it's better if I just let it go away. And then as I got older, I got really interested in spiritual studies and philosophy. And so my dad and I would sit down and we'd discuss these things, and I'd be so interested in rituals or religions. And sometimes, if I had friends who were from a different faith than I was, I would go with them to their places of worship, and I would be so excited. And I was fascinated with astrology and numerology and all of these things. So I would go to the bookstore as a kid and just read by myself for hours and hours and hours, not knowing I was seeking something. And then when it came to actually going off to school, I was a freshman, my first year at college. I did all my work that I needed to do. I was responsible in that way. I went to my classes, and then I would come home to my dorm room and sit there and meditate and just really, really, really indulge myself in those hours alone to be able to really connect with myself. And then things got a little intense because I was so connected. And so I was seeing things on a deeper level, experiencing things. My hands started to shoot out this healing energy, and I was just putting my hands all over the dorm room and feeling this pressure coming out of it. I didn't know it was my healing energy. And so I thought, well, gosh, I've got to get some help explaining this because I'm not really sure what's going on, but I know there's something intuitive based on what I've been reading. So I found an intuitive school while I was going to college, and I was training alongside, my undergraduate degree. And eventually, actually, that was in acting. I was a theater major.
Mhm.
And I realized as I was going through it that the acting was such a transcendental experience for me. I got to leave my body and just get the wisdom of another person, really understand somebody else. And that's what felt really good to me, was spiritual. But then I started to realize as I kept doing this work that I wasn't given the chance to, or I didn't have the space yet to really know myself as a spiritual individual. That was what my spiritual path was leading me on. And the acting was not going to do it. So I left the acting and I graduated early and I decided to go into elementary school teaching. And funny enough, because in university, like everyone there would start to ask me for readings because they knew I'd find an empty university classroom. I'd say, come get a reading, come get a reading. And then people started to refer me out. And I went and got my master's. I was an elementary school teacher for a little bit, and I'm still getting these calls about doing readings. And then eventually, Spirit just led me to be able to do this work full time. So that's kind of how I got here.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, if I was your parent, I would be really curious and wondering as a parent, how should I direct this child? I mean, what did your parents do? What were their did you ever talk to them about what they were thinking?
Yeah, so actually I have an episode on my podcast Soul Healer, which you're also on, which is so exciting. I asked them these questions. I said, what was it like, being a parent to a psychic child? And they had some really interesting answers. And they said there were moments where they noticed I was really different from the other kids and my interests were really different. And I was super sensitive to things and I was easily scared and frightened, but also I was very in touch with my emotions. And they noticed I was really into like spiritual or religious studies and understanding all of this stuff. And because I'm an only child and they were moving a lot, they were trying to just kind of settle into every environment as I was as well. And because of that, there was no real time to really investigate it on some level. They just saw moments of me really understanding and seeing these things or knowing these things, and they just indulged in it when they could. They let me explore it, but they didn't know to what extent it was getting to until later on in my life.
Wow. Did you have a military family or why all the moving?
So, well, we moved from India, and then it really was a different reason altogether. And primarily it was for work. It wasn't necessarily military work, but my father was moving around for work, and then we were trying to settle here. And so there were all these different things. And then finally, when we did get settled here, when we got everything that we needed, we had moved so many times before we found the perfect place to settle down. And unfortunately, that's just how it was. But I believe that everything is divinely planned. There's a reason for everything. So my soul and clearly my family's soul needed to go through all these different transitions to be able to finally land on this one place to learn about themselves and really integrate all that information. So at the end of the day, hindsight is 2020, but in the moment it was very much an introspective time because I didn't have anyone else who was relating to me. I didn't have any sort of it was always a new environment, new friends, new school, new curriculum, everything was new. And as a child, because I was navigating so many different curriculums in different cities, different countries, different states, I would just rely on my intuition. I remember there were like moments where I would have class and it would be math or French class or something, and I would not know how to do any of this stuff because my knowledge was kind of broken up from school to school to school. And I would just see the number in my head if it was a math equation or see the right answer. I had no idea what it was, so I would just write it down. And then the teacher would say, "Oh, that's correct. How did you get there? Can you explain to the class?" And I would feel really embarrassed, and I didn't know what to say.
Didn't know.
And so I had to learn how to actually stop, not activate that intuitive part of myself, kind of turn it down for a second and
Mhm,
do it the way that everybody else was doing it so that I could just navigate school for a little bit. And then eventually I learned it could be safe enough to use it in certain moments.
mhm.
So,
Wow. And then, I've heard other people who, as children, they moved around a lot and how difficult it was socially, just making friends. And you being very, sounds to me, very introverted and very much just in your own little world. I mean, how did that go for you?
I think it was looking back on it, it was really tough. It wasn't easy for sure. And I think that's why I turned to books and spirituality because my answers were there. Well, it felt like my answers were there and I could make sense of things. So I brought a lot, and I also spent a lot of time in my own head thinking and really formulating these different really abstract concepts about the universe and how things are working. Yet it was such a juxtaposition because I didn't feel smart when it came to school, but I had all of these things happening energetically in my head that I didn't know how they were coming through and channeling. So it was really a struggle because not only was I feeling so out of place and trying to blend in and try to feel the energy everywhere to be able to just fit in, but also I couldn't navigate the basic structures of a curriculum because every single time it was changed up on me.
Mhm.
So I think and it was really hard to leave my friends that I tried that I really found were connecting to me every single time, but I think it was part of the journey and now I understand it. But in the thick of things, it was really tough. It was truly, really tough.
Mhm. And what about now? Are you still a person that just likes to stay more to yourself? Did you become social as you got older and had a stable place to live?
Yeah, so I used to travel quite a bit to LA because that was the place where my family was at. I had my aunt and I had my cousins out there. And so as a 5-year-old child, I would be that unaccompanied minor that they would send on the plane alone. And I would go to my aunt's house for almost every single break. And so LA felt like home because everything else was changing. So now I'm here and it feels great to be able to have that stability. But I think what really helped me come into feeling a little bit more safe was that I learned how to use my tools, my psychic abilities, control them because truly I was overwhelmed and I was anxious. And I think I still would be if I didn't have them. But when I learned how to navigate energy, because I believe everything is energy, and if we're energy and we're working with the energy outside of us, then we can be in harmony. But if we're not, but if on some level you're believing you're this body and you have to believe that you're this body only and you're trying to navigate energy and the thing that's actually working against you is energy, then it's almost like there's so much disharmony and you don't know what to work with and you're always losing this battle. And so when I realized that, things started to shift and I felt more comfortable with myself and I felt more comfortable being with people.
Mhm. Makes sense.
Obviously, I still like to hang out in my house with my dog and a book, but does it, I think.
Yeah. So talk about energy. So many people talk about energy in so many different ways, and they mean all different things. So
Right.
when you're talking about energy, talk about what it is you mean, but also how can we use it in a positive way to be healing?
So energy is just is what's made up of every single that thing that we see here in front of us. And this energy is constantly in motion. These little particles are constantly moving. So we have the ability to change up the density of all of these energies by tapping into ourselves and tapping into our own intuitive power. And that's how, when we can manipulate this, when we can master the energy here in our aura, in our own selves, in our spirit, then it makes it easier to apply it to our world, to our reality, what we're seeing. And so if you can learn how to work with the situation where you're maybe having misaligned situations happen to you, or you're feeling like you're not really getting something or you're disconnected, then allowing yourself to, well, get quiet, get grounded, because when you do that, you start to make the energy come kind of together. It starts to form like this. It starts to create the density, a deeper density. And then, so really, I say it's always the spiritual first, and then it's the physical manifestation. So whether it's you feeling really, really sad and alone and or angry, and then it manifesting into some sort of disease, or you feeling these happy, amazing feelings, and then it leading you to amazing communities or amazing relationships, you are just creating the level of energy at which you are at, the vibration which you are at, and you're creating manifestations of that in your life in all.
So when you're working with people, especially I know Americans, we want to go to like the doctor and we want them just to fix us. Um, but a lot of times people don't want to take responsibility. So when you're working with people, what are they coming for and how do you talk them through that?
So it's a variety of different things that I find that people are coming to me for, whether it's a specific situation that they're trying to heal from. I think the general common thing that I notice with everyone who comes to work with me is that they notice that somehow they're aligned with something. They're noticing in their world, they're manipulating or they're in touch with something, but they don't know what's going on, kind of like my situation as well. And they know also they're living out of alignment and something is not right. And they're ready to just kind of clean it all out, reset the slate, and do it in a way that's really going to feel aligned to them. And whether it is manifestation or divine feminine energy or your past lives or working with karmic energy or connecting to your past loved ones or spirit guides, there's a layer of truly deciding and wanting to go deeper and being brave around knowing that there's work to do. So there are people who say, well, I don't really want to heal that right now, or it's really scary, or there might be instances where they're feeling like they're not wanting to go there because there's fear, but a part of them is here so that they can hear that the fear is what's blocking them. And then then in those moments, we take baby steps to really unlock what the fear is. Because at the end of the day, part of the fear that's keeping you from moving forward or looking at what needs to be healed is this energy of wanting you to stay at equilibrium, because equilibrium means you're safe, means that we've got it under control, means that you don't have to grow, because growth means we don't know what's going to happen. And our bodies have gone through so much trauma, so much abandonment, so much rejection, so much sadness, that equilibrium is the place to be. And so when I work with somebody and we work on our inner child or maybe patterns from the past, then they start to see that there's something that they can unlock and that it was rooted in the past and that's not in present time. And maybe a part of them is still living that out. So a lot of the work is to really bring that energy back so that they can realize they're not that anymore. They had that experience, but here they are now, ready to move forward. And that experience, yes, enhanced their life for some understanding or lesson, but it doesn't mean that that's who they are anymore.
Makes sense. The other question I wanted to ask is, I noticed being in the medical field that there's certain things that are passed down physically. Like I'll look inside someone's eyes and I'll see, the daughter has a big nerve and the mother has a big nerve, bigger than normal. And it's like, oh, that's just hereditary, right? So we have things that are passed down through our genetics. And I know there's also emotional things, mental things passed down through our genetics. and even spiritual things, and even things that are attached to all that, that just kind of comes down the line. And when you're working with people and those type of things come up, how do you help them handle those things? How do we clear those things?
So if it's in a one-on-one session, then I'll be able to sit and channel with them, or I'll help lead them through a meditation or a visualization that will target what the root of that is. And so we're always wanting to see what the root of that problem is. And truly, when you start to see if it's coming from, again, from a past life or an inner child wound or anything else like that, it's going to start to, it's almost like when we're unearthing something, things around it have to crumble, but then you pull out, like, let's say, the example that's coming into my head is, when you've got like a thorn in your hand accidentally, when you initially pull it out, it's painful.
Mhm.
But when it starts to heal, then you become even more whole. So what we do is we walk through the pain and we acknowledge that it's there, and we let the emotions flow in a safe way. However, we also realize that there's, again, a separation between where we were and where we are right now, so that the body can know, the mind can know, the spirit can know that it doesn't have to be defined by that, because in the spiritual realm there's no time and space. And so when you're healing something in a past life or as a child, that ripples through not only you but also generational lines in a way. So, did that answer your question? Would you repeat that question one more time?
Yeah, actually, I think you answered the question. I just want to know, how
Perfect.
did you handle those things? So how can we use our intuition to create the life we want?
So, I believe it's when we get to come out of resistance. So, our intuition is always going to be that little nudge. And I believe intuition is, and how you can notice it. So the most easy and simplest way to notice that something is your intuition is when you're either in a quiet space or you're a quiet state of mind, and then something comes straight in, whether it's a thought, something you hear, something you feel, something you just know. And then for a split second, that information just comes in. It's like very, very nuanced, and then it goes away, and then all your other functions, like your thinking and your emotions and everything, kind of come back into to play. So it's almost like, not necessarily you're in another bubble or state of mind, but rather, or a channel even, but it's, yes, and it also can be kind of like an epiphany, but it's more that an an information is being downloaded, delivered to you, because you are in a state to be able to hear it. And it can also happen when you are, and it doesn't mean that you have to go out and just meditate to be able to hear things. That can help quiet your mind, because truly, I believe meditation is a preparation for life. So, meditation or healing is not the act of quieting your mind. Meditation is allowing that which is not yours to be able to release, so that you can go in life and have a quieter mind and apply that into your living. So, how it applies to, gosh, I'm like going everywhere, and I forgot your question, but I know it's connect. Will you repeat it one more time?
I
Oh,
just
yes,
asked
how
you
it
how do we
can,
use our
yes,
intuition?
thank you so much. This is how my mind works when I want to share all these these insights. So, how we can do that, how it can help us live the life that we want to live, and come into alignment with that, is when we start to hear it more and then take action on it. So what really separates people from living an aligned life, because everyone is intuitive, everyone is psychic. So the word psychic comes from soul essence personality. So we have a soul essence that has a certain flavor to it, a certain expression to it. And so when we start to act on what we think, when we acknowledge it, when we give it space to occur, then we can start to trust it and allow it to be our guidance system. But if we get a hit and then we don't listen to it and we do something completely different, and then we realize, oh my goodness, I should have listened to it, or, I don't know why things are out of alignment and I am disconnected. Well, it's because you're disconnecting with yourself. So you can't necessarily expect to live in a life that's full of ease. So when we start to do that work, when we start to listen to it, allow it to come into our lives, then we start getting led. It's almost like little breadcrumbs. We start getting led to the places and spaces that we're meant to be and the life purpose that we need to live in.
I love what you're saying, and some of it's so profound. This is one of those things I'm gonna have to go back and listen again, because you're saying such like the part where, you're getting rid of what's not you, and who wants to keep what's not them?
Right, exactly. And so many of us fall victim to, and I actually don't like the word victim, because it feels like we're powerless, because the truth is we're never powerless. We're the creators of our own reality. But we are so much around this constant belief that life has to be a certain way and life has to be lived in one way or another. And if you don't live that way, you're either doing something wrong, you're failing, or you are going to be left behind. And that's definitely not fair, because our world right now is not set up to be able to trust our intuition, unfortunately. And it's when when more and more people start to choose to listen to their own inner guidance, that there's more permission for other people in the world to start to say, hey, wait a second, I see that person doing something different. That means I can do something different, and that can be okay. And then we start to have permission to start to create our world on a massive scale that feels in much more alignment.
And I love what you just said, because basically what you just said is be yourself, which is what I tell people all the time. Be yourself. Show us your unique, quirky, weird, different person. We want to see you, exactly you, how you are, because it's delightful. It's delightful to see the differences and see the creativity and the uniqueness of people, and it makes life fun.
Absolutely. And the thing is, and I can speak to this because it felt like this for a while, as a child. It wasn't safe. It feels unsafe. It's hard to have the courage and bravery to talk about these things. And I think when that happens, when you notice that there's something out of alignment and you're feeling like you want to trust it and listen to it, but you don't have a group that will keep you safe in that, then it's time to start seeking community that feels like it's going to validate you, because that's the way to being able to amplify who you are and see and unlock and have permission for that unique, quirky, sweet self that exists. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes. So, I just, at this point, I want you to tell people how they can connect with you, what services you have available now.
So you can find me on social media, on Instagram or on TikTok or Facebook. On YouTube, I have some free workshops if you want to try them out as well. All of that is under clairvoyant healer Ishita or Ishita. Ishita is the way that it's pronounced when in Hindi, and it actually means manifestation of God. I came in with such a really interesting name. So clairvoyant healer Ishita or clairvoyant healer Ishita. And then you can also listen to my podcast on anywhere you stream your podcasts on Spotify or anything like that. That's Soul Healer. And then my website is www.clairvoyanthealerishita.com. And last but not least, if you find me at any of those places and you want to know about your training or psychic training, I offer psychic and mediumship training. So we work together one-on-one, and then we have reading nights with the other community members, and I channel messages for you and tell you what tools to use every single day of the week based on what the energy feels like. So it's like a weather forecast for the week. And then I also offer readings as well. So you can find that through my work or my websites and my social media. And then I also have a show coming up on Ethereal Network. So if you would like to check out my show, I'd love to see you there. And then, gosh, lots of different things. I have a retreat coming up in Bali. I do retreats, so stay tuned for the other ones. And I also believe that if I have workshops every single month on different topics, so if it's healing your inner child, past lives, if it's money and abundance, anything you name it, there's a workshop on it. And there's a possibility to try out this work if you join us. So that's where you can find me, and that's what I'm offering right now.
All right. Thank you so much. So now I have a personal question. What gives
Yes.
you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
At this point, I think it's really finding ways to be in love. And what I mean by that is those little moments where you feel so much joy. So I find it with my dog, or when I'm walking, or I'm on the beach, or where when I notice moments where like life is beautiful and you can't necessarily explain it, or you don't even know why. It's just the simplest, most beautiful moment. So I think, yes, being of service is always going to be my favorite thing, and being in joy and my happiness. However, recently it's really been about finding those little moments about love.
Mhm.
Excuse me, now it's my turn. Finding those little moments where you can experience love.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing all your wisdom. And like I said, I'm going to have to go back and listen again because that was really, really deep and profound.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about to be here, and thank you for the work that you do, because truly what you do, what you put out there is so special. So I'm so honored. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one last question before we finish. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Okay. Well, I think we kind of addressed this a little bit in the podcast today. I think it's about allowing yourself enough space to be seen and heard by you, so you can create that trust and commitment to yourself first, so you can allow your life to be created and painted by you.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ashita.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you again soon.